What a great way to watch this movie packed up against each other in New York City. My name is Eugene Hernandez. Hi, everybody. I'm not going to pretend to be impartial about this film. Sasha's a very dear friend. Peter's a friend. And I was just thinking as I was watching it again now, that it was about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, Sasha, that you showed the film to Brian, Brooks, and I. And it was an early cut of the film. And I was just thinking about that year journey you've had. So congratulations, first of all, to you and Peter and to the entire team on this film we just shared with you, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
I do know a lot about the making of this film, so I'm going to share a little bit of what I know and also engage Sasha and Peter in a conversation about what you just saw. You'll have to remind me, Sasha, what year it was, or maybe you remember what month it was, when you, I remember you coming to me and saying you had just kind of spilled out this, you call it almost a confession, onto your iPhone. You were on the subway.
Yeah, it was 2018, and I was taking train from West 4th Street to 49th Street, and pretty much I wrote it all within 4 stops, and then I walked out, and after a couple blocks it was ready. This idea, the confession, the love letter of longing for someone you've never met, and it came first as a form of poetry, of a message that felt needs to be delivered with an unknown address. And at that point, I didn't even know whether it was a film, a dance piece, it should be, lyrics for the song. So it was unshaped, but the message was already there within the words.
Your background, you're a writer, and we'll talk about the collaboration that you and Peter had, but you certainly are a writer and a producer, but your background also is in dance, and your training is in dance. Peter, your background, excuse me, is in writing, and well, first tell me how you two found each other, and then my question, which you can pick up after, is maybe an early conversation you had. You had this text that you'd found within yourself, and you sat with Peter at some point and decided to shape it into something that became this film. So first how you met, and then maybe an early conversation about to the two of you how you worked on adapting it. I know over a very long time.
Can I start?
Of course.
So yeah, I do have a background in dance. I've been dancing for over 20 years, and that's how I got to the United States. I was invited to dance at the Joffrey Ballet, and when I started to think about this text, I thought it's gonna be a film, but I've never directed or written any film, so I knew that I need a professional writer who understands the structure. And it happened that Peter and I met at that time, and that's interesting that Peter, you worked for Ron Howard, Steven Spielberg, and then Sasha Korbut. That's an upgrade, by the way. But I met Peter, and we started a little bit to talk the way I want to bring this text into the film. And at some point, I'm saying that I made a mistake. I said, "Oh, I used to dance," and then I was like, "Oh, I think we should do some dance in the film." And I was not happy with this idea. I really wanted to let my dance background go. I was already writing for magazines, doing profiles on filmmakers and artists. I wanted to be in film. I did some acting, but dancing was the last outlet that I wanted to explore. So that's where I'll stop, and
Jeez.
that's where I'll pass you a mic.
Yeah, when we first talked about this, there was this bit of writing you had done, and I remember you not really knowing what to do with it. And over the many years, I certainly helped in some ways. This is very much Sasha's film, I will say, and I was very glad to be a part of the creative process. But it did take many years, and when I was thinking about today and getting to see it in a movie theater, Albert Maysles, the documentary filmmaker, had this sort of famous quote, which I'm guessing many of you know anyway, but he said, if you end up with the story that you started with, you weren't listening all along. And obviously, making documentary film, it has a particular meaning. But it was one of the things I really experienced with Sasha in the genesis of this film, which took place over 5 years. That what he intended, or what came out of him in the original writing, changed so much. And thinking back on it, I feel like it was because you were listening mainly to you and your life and what you were experiencing, and allowed that experience to change the film so much, and to, especially having asked a question that does not have an answer, these issues around that feeling of being incomplete, the questions of the difference between being alone and being lonely. And you worked so hard to stay present in that creative process, which made me, it was the gift to me was I got to go along for that ride and to maybe help you with some of the words. But it was really your journey, and it was a pleasure to be along there.
Maybe, Sasha, if you don't mind, to elaborate a bit on this journey now, if you can take us back to that subway ride in 2018, and then bookend that with, I mean, we can even just bring it to today, all of us being here together at the end of 2023. How do you, maybe if you don't mind sharing a window into what else you were, what sort of, where you were mentally or intellectually, creatively in 2018, and how you look at, when you watch this film again, how you look at sort of that journey that you've had, the person you see on screen, the person you are now. How are you thinking about all that?
Well, I think when I started to work on this film, I wanted to find an answer. I posed the question, do we need another person in life to feel complete, or are we missing connection with ourselves? And so digging deeper into it, basically as each human being, we are seeking for 3 types of connections. It's the intellectual, spiritual, heart-to-heart, and the sexual, the chemistry. Ideally, we want to find them all 3 within one person, and ideally forever. And what I learned in this process after interviewing so many people and starting conversations with you, Peter, is that I think it's impossible, and I think it's wrong in so many ways. And just give it as an example that even if we, let's say we connect intellectually and we become friends, it doesn't mean that that kind of connection is going to last. It doesn't mean that 5 years later we're going to be on the same page. And there is nothing wrong with that. Yet our instinct and the ideals that we built in our mind is that yearning of an impossible, to find it all within. So this is where it started, and it was burning inside me. And therefore the film came up. And so as I started to explore this topic back in 2018, I thought about, okay, this is the epidemic of loneliness. And in a way that I feel terribly lonely. I'm sitting in a subway with a bunch of people, and somebody placing the hand on other person's knee, and I'm dying from jealousy, and other person is sitting alone, and I feel sorry for them. And I could just, it was an observation first. And then it turned into conversations with people who are coupled and who are not coupled. And with somebody who's single or somebody who lost their partner. And so it was interesting to see that when I was saying, oh, I'm making film about love and misconnection, people say, oh my God, story of my life. That's what brought the whole project to the final scene. And I think it's probably clear, and that was an important message to translate, that at the end of the day, you're not alone in your loneliness. And that's what Peter and I try to find a way how to convey it in an artful way. Do you have anything to add? Because you've been participating so much in all those conversations and email that we shared between each other.
I genuinely don't have a lot to add to that, but I do think that it takes a certain kind of effort to not to not stay on the easiest path, and I think that's part of what you experienced through those years, because the world was changing, but also you were changing. 5 years in what I consider a young adult life is a lot of years, and in some ways the film is, I think, from what the original writing voiceover was, is kind of more worldly and more mature, and I think dealing with the impossibility to answering that question, and these sort of really questioning the cultural norm, or what the culture puts out about finding a single person, is just like there isn't an answer to that question, but we all deal with it in some way, and I think that's part of the resonance of the movie.
May I just add one thing? It was last week, a friend of mine who's here invited me to the playback theater, and there's a woman came out on stage, and beautiful and well spoken, and she said, I've been single for a very long time, and 2 years ago I found my soulmate, and I finally feel fulfilled, and she's 78. So 2 years ago, do the math. And she said, what I'm learning right now is the form of intimacy, the exploration of it. I found it so fascinating. Like, here's me, sitting on a subway. I'm 36 now, so it was like back when I'm 31. Feeling all that sense of incompleteness. And then, 5 years later, you're in a theater and someone gives you such a confession.
Fascinating. I mean, it's kind of where I was going to go next with this conversation, was finding intimacy with other collaborators. You brought Peter into this process. You spent years working through the text that would be adapted into this screenplay and into this film. I'm thinking about Oren Moverman, or Jonathas, or Yuri Revich, or Corey and Pontus. So I'll let you pick who you want to start with, but if you could share with us a little bit of how you chose some of your, or Leslie Schatz, some of your creative collaborators on this, and how you made those decisions, and how you brought them into this team, into this family.
Well, since it was my first film, that I just went to friends of mine. I don't have limitation can be a style. So you go to those who are available and you say, this is what I'm working on. Would you like to join? And I came with a pitch that I'm making a film about love and misconnection. That's pretty much what I said. And when I called Pontus, who the lead, the blonde, the kid, who is the established filmmaker and a ballet dancer, and he said, yeah, yearning is something I explore in my films, in my ballet compositions that he does. Corey Michael Smith, he has a wider range of films that he's done, but 1985 is one of those films that you explore the sense of grief, and he, Corey is only in a phone booth and then he walks out, but his voice is throughout the whole film. So he shapes, he encapsulates, and creates he sets up the tone. His voice is set up the tone. So to me, it's the greatest acting performance, because all you need is just the voice, and the voice can decide how you're gonna feel in the film. So in some way, he artistically manipulates that. And then the others, when I said, I'm doing this film and I want to explore this topic, and they felt connected to it. So it wasn't like going to IMDb and trying to find a producer, filmmaker, actor. It's just you call in your friends, and some of them say yes and some of them say no, and you go with those who say yes. And you say thank you to those who said no. I mean, your ego hurts. And many of this crew here I see sitting, artists in so many forms, and dancers and theater actors, writers, filmmakers. So of course, you all know that. The ego hurts, but then you like sort of, okay, this guy said yes. And Eugene, we talked about it. You said, I remember when I worked for the New York Film Festival, and there would be like 5 people at the screening, and I was like, there are no people. And he said, Sasha, focus on those who came. That became my mantra. I mean, today is not applicable because, like, guys, there's a lot. But focus on those who say yes, and I think that's what it was, where it all started.
I'm mindful of time, and I wanted to give some of you in this very crowded theater an opportunity to raise your hand or just stand up and share something or ask a quick question. So if you don't mind, Irene in the second row, and hand you the microphone. Just because it's easier to hear in the back.
Okay, so Sasha, you said that you wanted to not to leave dance behind. A sentiment I understand quite well, but you didn't. So can you talk about how
It's
you...
about the dance part.
Yeah, well, how you didn't leave it behind.
Well,
How you
yeah.
felt about not leaving it.
I mean, when we started to work on it, I said, I'm going to act in it. I was trying to do some acting at this time. I've been in Ocean's 8 at that moment. I was like, I'm an actor. I can do that. You know, and I wanted to dance in the film. But I was already 32. My body did not function as it was. So we started to rehearse with Adam Baruch, who is the choreographer from Juilliard, very established movement director, and then pandemic happened, and I was like, I'm not gonna dance in this film, and I cannot do two works at the same time. So I decided to stay behind camera and find someone who will translate me. So it was such a relief not to be in front of the screen and being concerned, do I look well? Am I still in a good shape?
Did you choreograph it?
So I did not choreograph it. Adam Baruch did, and he's a fantastic choreographer. I hope we will work again. He comes from Pina Bausch background, the contemporary movement, so you can sense it. And Pontus choreographed his solo. So yes, I partly left the dance, but I just stayed in a way behind the camera, just doing. And one more thing, like I felt my job as a director was gather the best ones and let them do the job, and that's pretty much what I did. Because it's and I don't have control issues in that kind of way, like I can let it go. Like, I think it's important to say because they did the whole job. The most work it was between Peter and I to figure out what would be the right text to say, what scene to include, what scene not, and that's where it was very helpful to have your guidance.
Sean, are we okay with a couple more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, until someone yells at us from back
Okay,
there.
we'll go here
Next
and then
screening
we'll
is
go
mine, so.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Leonid,
We'll go to
sorry,
Leon. We'll start here and then
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this movie. I feel like I needed to see it today, and it's just also very inspiring to see films from people from the same part of the world. So, спасибо большое.
Спасибо.
Спасибо. My question is, so as I heard, you've been for did art for a really long time in your life. You've been a dancer, and then you went into writing. How did you find film? And why did you decide to enter this crazy industry of film? Why?
Somebody asked me today, Tyler, who works at the concession, he asked me the same question, or I actually asked him, like, how did you get into film? I mean, I was born in Soviet Union, raised in Russia. We got first films Jurassic Park and Beauty and the Beast. My favorite was Beauty and the Beast. My father's Jurassic Park. That's how it all started. And then I think I'm just moving from one art form to another, and inconsistency is kind of what I'm constant at. I'm sure that probably the next thing is going to be I'm going to write something, so I don't think filmmaking limits is not the last step. It's just another train car. So like there's no guarantee I'll make another film, although I hope I will, but there might be another art form that I'll explore. So let's say filmmaking is the next art form that I'm currently interested at, and therefore there we have.
Leonid.
Leonid, can you speak out loud?
Do I get a microphone?
You can.
We'll pass
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well. Thank you, Stephen.
So, first of all, congratulations on a beautiful, beautiful film, both cinematically and emotionally. I think all of us can relate. Well, I certainly can. Before we meet our boyfriends, partners, husbands, wives, whatever, that's exactly how we feel. And that's how I felt before I met my husband. So thank you for this beautiful, representation of that feeling. As a fellow, before you since you started working on the film, because I remember you were talking about it, and now seeing the beautiful finished product, what would you say was the most challenging aspect of it, between pre-production, getting the actors, getting the scenes right, getting the budget, and everything in between? What was the most challenging for you? Thank you.
Can you actually help me to answer this question, because you've been watching me from outside, so you have a better perspective.
Wow, that's kind of a tough one. I mean, because I wasn't as involved in the actual production part of it, which of course is always, especially with a limited budget, in this size film. I do think, actually, and interesting you asked this question about dance, that the incorporating of the dance, which it's not a dance film, but there was a very particular kind of translation where I felt along the way a lot of the text came out because you started imagining how the dance could portray it in the way that, these are moving pictures. And I think that it's part of the strength of the movie making in the end, that there's a lot of time when no words are being spoken, and it asks the audience, and when you translated words into dance, it just gave it I feel gave it a much more emotional feel. And I think that was a genuine difficult step for you, to let go of words are very controlling, and to let go of that, and particularly these dancers who brought so much to it. So maybe something like that.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for that, to stepping in. And I will just say it was also financial struggles. I still have PTSD, so when people ask me, like, are you going to make your feature? I was like, am I going to make my feature? Yes, when I pay my debit card. So actually, you guys purchasing ticket today helps Bank of America a lot.
One more, Sean.
One more question?
one more.
Okay.
Right behind
Isaac?
Hey, Sasha, I just want to say thank you for being fearless enough to tell your story. I think that a lot of filmmakers and a lot of people in general are too afraid that if they just tell what they're going through, they're going to be judged or something in a way. And so thank you for being fearless enough to just do that, because what you experienced in your life, thematically through this and being incomplete and everything, we've all felt that in our own way. And you tell it in your own way, in your story, in a way where you've incorporated your dance, which was beautiful. People will relate to it because we relate to the themes. And it's unique because of where you grew up in Russia and everything. So they thank you. My question is about feeling incomplete. Like, how do you feel now? Do you feel incomplete now? Do you feel complete in what you're doing, whether it's love or now with the film? How do you feel now?
Well, I'll tell two things quickly. That it was important for us, speaking of challenge and Leonid, I'm a queer, I'm gay, but I knew that the story has to be universal. And it was an important for us to make sure that even though we telling the queer story within the leading character, it is applicable for both. That's why the last scene is so crucial. Regarding how I feel, there is a beautiful documentary just came out or coming out called American Symphony. Jean-Baptiste writing for Carnegie Hall composition while his wife Suleika has a remission. She had a cancer, it comes back. And one of the last scenes when she's at the doctor's office and the doctor come in and it's all happening live and he says, it's not sure whether you're gonna live or not. You might live, you might not. And you can see that in her face, that ambiguity, that like, am I going to live or not? It's a big question that she will find out the answer with time. That's my answer. Not that determined in terms of life and death, but it remains a big question. It's not about whether you find the answer, it's how you change your relationship to the question. And that thing changes from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. in so many ways, constantly. So it's not like, I made a decision, this is going to be like that or like that. No, it's not another TED Talk where I'll come up with a solution and creating an app that makes everybody fulfilled. So I think that's it's a dot, and and we are all in it, participating in one way or another. There is no guarantee. I'm learning to live okay with that, to be okay with that, and it's a working process of learning.